welcome to episode number 71 of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast, the show where I talk to introverts who grow their business and make a difference. As always, I'm Sarah Senecroce. I'm your host. This is my podcast, and I'm excited for another great episode. This week, I have another introvert tech guy for you. He's your stereotypical techie who built his online startup, which now has 200 employees, all working 100% remotely from 26 different states and 17 different countries. I'm talking about no other than Wade Foster, the CEO and co-founder of Zapier. I'm personally a big fan of Zapier, and I use it a lot in my business. I'm all about efficiency, and Zapier definitely makes you more efficient. If you're not familiar with Zapier, here's what their website says about them. Zapier is an online automation tool that connects your favorite apps such as Gmail, Slack, MailChimp, and over 1,000 more. You can connect 2 or more apps to automate repetitive tasks without coding or relying on developers to build the integration. So you can move info between your web apps automatically so you can focus on your most important work. It's easy enough that anyone can build their own app workflows with just a few clicks. During the conversation, I'm sharing my favorite Zaps, and I also asked Wade to share his favorite Zaps. So I'm really excited to share this conversation with the founder of the probably most introvert-friendly company out there. Just a side note on the audio quality, unfortunately, my audio tech stars were out of sync once again, and Zoom picked up the wrong mic for the recording. So I sound like I'm hiding in a barrel, but luckily Wade's audio is fine, and that's the one that matters, right? So apologies for that. And now without further ado, here's my conversation with Wade.
Hi, Wade. So good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Sarah.
Thanks. I mean, we saw each other, but the audience obviously doesn't see you since it's a podcast. As I just read in the official bio, you're the co-founder of Zapier. That's kind of a great company, especially great for introverts. So tell us why and how you, as the introverted founder, how that works for you.
You know, Brian, Mike, and I started Zapier about 7 years ago, and it started as a side project to help people automate all the different work they have between all these applications that they use. But one of the interesting things about Brian, Mike, and I is all 3 of us are introverts. And given that it was a side project, we didn't have an office or anything like that. And so as we grew, we kind of set this up as a remote company. And I think distributed companies end up maybe attracting more introverts than maybe perhaps an in-office company does. And I think a lot of it has to do with, it's a strong written culture and a strong written environment that we've created here at Zapier, is that it's a lot of, reflecting on your work, thinking deeply about what you do, and then writing out your thoughts and things like that, which tend to appeal to introverts at times. I think the culture that we've built here certainly appeals to introverts perhaps more than others.
Interesting. Yeah. So you have 170, I think, employees. Are they all over the world, all over the US, or how does that work?
We have folks all over the world. About 2/3 are in the US and 1/3 are, scattered across, I think, 17 different countries.
Mm-hmm. And I remember when Stephanie, I think she's a member of your team, she kind of introduced you via email, and she sent me a couple of bullet points, and she said that there was an event that you recently organized, like some kind of company retreat where you have these stickers. So tell us about those stickers.
Oh, yeah. So we do I think an important thing about remote companies is you do need to have some in-person time. Humans do need to connect with other humans. That's like a fundamental thing about us. And so even though we do work remotely, we do these company gatherings twice a year where we fly everybody in and we spend time working together throughout the week. That said, not everybody, we work from home all the time. And so it's a different type of environment for everyone. So it's a little nerve-wracking. It's like, what should I do? Who do I talk to? Can I talk to these people? Is that okay? So, we added to like the badges that have your name on it, how outgoing you are, like Do you prefer hugs or handshakes? Like these little things that just kind of help people feel a little bit more comfortable with being in person for the first time for some of them.
Right. That's great. I think every kind of conference or event should have something like that. Maybe not hugs or handshakes necessarily, because
Sure.
for you, it was, people within the same company don't necessarily want to hug people that you meet for the first time. But
Totally.
like, do you prefer in-depth conversations, or just kind of these icebreakers that make you understand whether you're more introverted or extroverted? Or just also what I find at these conferences is often that the schedule is so packed that there's no time for introverts to just kind of go and have some alone time. So just have some, possibility, like small rooms where you could just kind of go and hang out alone, things like that, right?
Yeah, and I think, it goes beyond introverted and extroverted. And I think it is about creating an inclusive environment where folks feel like they're part of the event, that they belong there. And there's other little things that we do to help with this. One of our teammates introduced us to this concept of the Pac-Man method, which if you've ever played the game Pac-Man, it's a little head that has a mouth that's open and goes around chomping on these like dots. Well, the Pac-Man method is if you're standing with a group of people, you should stand like a Pac-Man where it leaves an open hole for the mouth so that anyone who is interested in joining your group, there's a space for them. So it makes it easier for outsiders to kind of walk in and join the group. I think most of the time when you're talking to a group of people, you make a full circle. And so it's kind of hard for an outsider to they're poking their head over someone's shoulder and being like, can I join this conversation? Is that okay or not? So just little things like that help create these more welcoming environments that makes it easier for any type of person, whether you're introvert or extrovert. It really just builds a more inclusive environment for folks.
Yeah, I love that Pac-Man method. Great. Let's talk a bit about how Zapier generates revenue. So I know you have a subscription, right? Tell us how that works and if you have other revenue streams.
The main thing that we do is, we help folks be more productive at work by connecting the common tools that they use. So we have integrations with things like G Suite, Slack, Trello, MailChimp, Facebook, Salesforce, you name it. And it's free to get started. So we have a free plan that allows you to get the basics. And then as you use more of the product, if you put more volume through, you set up more Zaps, we have a subscription model that starts at $20 a month and scales up as your usage grows for bigger and bigger teams and companies. And that is the core business model that we have.
Right. Would you consider that passive revenue, or it's not really passive because you have your team constantly developing?
Yeah, definitely not passive revenue. It's something that, 170 people work on full time, day in and day out to help everyone be more productive at work is really the end goal for us.
So what do these 170 people do? Is that customer support or is it mostly new development?
It's a mix. About 60 of the folks are working in engineering who are working on the core product, making sure all the functionality exists their customers need or are interested in having. And then, we have another about 50 folks that are working in customer service, which are helping people get set up with the tool, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And then we have folks in marketing and design and analytics and HR and finance and things like that help run the company on a day-to-day basis too.
Right. So how does it feel for you and your other two friends that started this company just thinking, we're just kind of a bunch of geeks who started a small company. Now we have 170 people. How does that feel as three introverted business owners?
It's exciting, honestly, to have this kind of impact on, our customers, to have this kind of impact on the people who work with us. It really is a lot of fun. There's things where if you're an introvert, you have to be cognizant of your own personal load and things like that. The nice thing is, as one of the founders, as the CEO, you can kind of design the organization in a way that helps you be successful too. That doesn't mean that, if I have a teammate who's extrovert and they need me to get my energy up, they need to have discussions, they need me to engage with them, I'm going to be willing to do that because that's what I think good leaders do is you meet people where they're at. And so sometimes that, stretches me outside of my comfort zone, but I think that's also good for me too, just for my own personal development.
Right. So yeah, let's talk about these comfort zones. What would you say is one of your biggest strengths as an introverted entrepreneur?
For me, one of the ways that I think is writing. If I'm trying to introduce a new concept to the team, maybe a difficult strategy we're trying to implement, or there's a difficult problem in front of us, one of the ways that I like to solve it is I like to go off on my own. I'll take my dog on a walk. I'll think through it, and then I'll sit down and I'll write out, here's what I think about this. And I find that I'm a much more concise communicator when I have the time to write down my thoughts and really think through what it is that I'm trying to say to people. And so that is the way that I feel it's a strong suit of mine.
Right. What about a challenge? You said you go walk with your dog, but since you're remote, and is that ever a challenge to feel kind of like isolated and lonely, or you have so much interaction online that has never been an issue?
I get a lot of interaction online. We're on Zoom calls much of the day with
God for
teammates.
Zoom, eh?
I know, Zoom is amazing.
Yes.
I use it all day, every day, it seems like,
Right.
to talk to teammates and things like that and catch up on what they're working on, to help collaborate on different projects. And I never feel like I'm disconnected or lonely, but I know that others in the similar environment, they do have to manage their own kind of, I guess, loneliness setting, for lack of a better word, to make sure that they are getting that engagement that fills up their tank.
Right. So if that's not an issue, then what is? Or maybe you don't have any challenges.
No, I think there's things that are certainly challenging for me. For example, I have teammates who like to debate things, and they like to, maybe say a group meeting. They like to really debate things. And when things get stressful, they like to engage even deeper on those sites of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for me, when we start debating, when things start to get stressful, I like to go on a walk, think things through, write it down. This is how I think. But then I have these other teammates who like to work in this way. And I think for me, it's recognizing like, hey, this is what helps them out. And so, I'll help engage with this meeting, but I'll recognize this isn't for me. This isn't what's helping me out, but it's for them. I'm doing this for them to help them get to a place that they need to be at. But those things are challenging for me, and can be challenging for the teammates too if they want more out of me in those times. But I think that's one of the things that's really smart when you work as groups, is to figure out what each other's personal work styles are, and then talk through, hey, how are we going to handle working through these things when we have different work styles?
Right. And that is in itself a challenge, I think, for an introvert, because a lot of fellow introverts and probably a lot of listeners, well, they're actually fine working on their own, and maybe they chose to run their online business because they're like, oh my God, these colleagues at work, they're driving me crazy. And so I'm just better off on my own. I guess the nice thing is that it's your company and you get to choose whoever you want to work with still.
There is power in working with, folks that are different from you. You get different perspectives. You see the world in a different way. And I think that's important. I think introverts can often go off on their own and be like, hey, I'm just going to do this by myself. But if you do that, if that's the only mode that you ever operate in, you lose out on a valuable perspective that's worth seeing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so true. Every now and then, even if you don't necessarily have to have your own team, you should just run projects with other entrepreneurs together just to keep practicing that muscle, because you're always doing everything on your own. It's true. It gets, you lose that flexibility.
Exactly.
Take us to an aha moment, some time where you had this big realization. Tell us the story.
Big aha moment. I think this isn't related to being an introvert or anything like that, but one of the things we had as a core philosophy at Zapier a pretty long time was, don't hire till it hurts. We liked keeping the company small. We liked keeping teams small. In fact, we still like keeping the company smaller and keeping teams small and things like that. But one of the things that we found ourselves in was that we launched this new feature and all of a sudden had about 80% more signups on a daily basis than we were getting previously. And at that time, our customer support team was about 6 people. So pretty much overnight after launching this new feature, we needed to grow from 6 to 12 on that team because we were getting twice the volume of customers coming in the door, and they were asking, twice as many questions. And that kind of forced us to look and say, it takes us 3 months to find a person. It takes us another 3 months to get them up to speed. If we wait till it hurts and we're growing this quickly, by the time we have that person in the door, by the time we have them ramped up, it still hurts because we've continued to grow even further past that. And so, it really forced us to say, okay, this don't hire till it hurts thing, while good in theory, we need to get better at forecasting what the growth of this business looks like so that we can get ahead of our hiring needs and make sure that we have the staff trained up. Otherwise, the work's going to be really stressful because we'll have 6 people doing the work of what 12 people probably should be doing. So that was one of those things where we just kind of had to change the way we thought about the business a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because, when you're starting out, you probably have this kind of mentality of bootstrapping and you just don't know that you're going to grow. And as entrepreneurs, we always have to adapt, right? So I'm glad you realized to look ahead and think already, okay, what kind of people do we need for the future?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about, I call them the 3 golden nuggets. So these are kind of habits or resources. So the first one is a personal habit, something that you do on a regular basis, daily or whatever, that you think contributes to your success.
One thing I started doing, I've done this since the beginning of Zapier is, and we ask that everyone in the company does this. It's called a Friday update. So it's the end of the week. Everyone writes a little bit of what they did that week, what they're planning on doing next week, maybe some stuff about what they did outside of work. And they publish it to our internal site. It helps keep everyone up to date on what's going on. But the real power behind it is the sharing is certainly valuable, and reading through what your teammates is doing is certainly valuable. But I think the most power comes from the self-reflection that it goes from having to think about your week and really reflect on hey, what am I focusing on? How am I helping our customers? And am I doing the right things? One of the things I've done recently with this habit, I've been doing it for, since the beginning of Zapier. In the last year, I really changed it up to spend an extra 30 minutes, an extra hour every week writing about a topic to the team that resonates with me, whether it's a trend that I'm seeing in the customers or in our market, whether it's how to handle some particular challenge that we're facing internally. It kind of just is whatever strikes me as interesting of the week. And I'll write a few extra paragraphs to really help share what I think is important for the company that week. And that helps build a lot of alignment across the whole organization because they're kind of getting to hear what I think is most relevant to us every single week. And it forces me to clarify with myself what I think is relevant and important. And so that just act of writing and reflecting every week, I think has been a really strong personal habit that's helped my success over the years.
Great. Yeah. What about, usually I ask for kind of an internet resource, but what I want to ask you is actually, what's your favorite Zap?
Mm.
I don't know how many hundreds or thousands there are, but what's your favorite integration?
Yeah. So one of my favorites is one of my simpler Zaps that I use. We use Slack internally as a team. And with 170 people in Slack, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different comments and messages and things happening left and right. And for me, that's difficult to keep up with everything that's going on. In fact, I don't even try to keep up with everything that's going on. However, there are certain threads that I do need to follow up with. But if I'm on mobile, or if it's happening when I'm away from my keyboard for whatever reason, I might forget that I need to follow up on that.
Right.
And so one of the Zaps I have set up is that whenever I star a Slack message, I have it send me an email. And so I use my email inbox as a way to make sure to follow up with all these internal communications that I think are relevant for me to follow up on. And so it's a really simple Zap. It's, hey, when I star a Slack message, send an email. But it's a really powerful one that I use every day, and it helps me keep up to date on what's going on in the company.
Right. All right. I'm going to share mine too. My favorite ones are the integration between Webinar Jam and a Google spreadsheet. So whenever someone signs up, I get them added to a Google spreadsheet. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is the one with Acuity, where when someone books clarity call with me, I also get those people added to a Google spreadsheet. So I love those too. It's so simple, but saves you so much time and really keeps you really organized.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like you like to organize out of Google Sheets, and so you use that as a place to stay on top of things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Great. What about a book that you would recommend to the audience and why?
I think a classic that has really shaped how I think is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It really has just a lot of kind of no nonsense, tactical, real ways to engage and work with other people. And then if you're an introvert, maybe that doesn't come naturally to you. And I found it a really useful way to help build relationships with folks.
Right. My son is 15 and he's even more introverted than I am. He has like one or two good friends, but I kind of snuck that book into his Kindle. I don't want to tell him read it. It's kind of like criticizing, but it's true. There's just so many simple kind of tips and stuff in there that just makes it, I guess, easier to be open to other people. Yeah. Great. The last question goes around marketing and marketing with integrity. So when I say marketing with integrity, what comes up for you? What do you think of?
I think where marketing goes wrong is when the delta between what you say you're providing and what you actually provide is not the same. Like you're overselling. You're saying that you do more than what you can. And I think the best marketing, it teaches, it educates, it informs, it delivers on the value. So if you have a product that really does help people, if you really can have the impact that you think you can have, that's when marketing is at its best, because you combine marketing with a great product, with a great story, and all of a sudden you're able to deliver something that really has meaningful impact on folks. Often marketing goes off the rails when you toss it on a kind of just not a very good product or not a very good service, and that's never going to feel very good.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of like it doesn't feel authentic because you're selling me the moon, where I could just tell that you can probably not actually commit to that. So, right. Well, this has been a great conversation, Wade. I really appreciate it. I think you're running an amazing company, and I'm sure the 170 employees would agree. Did you say that they're all introvert? Did you do a test?
No. I just know that it comes up pretty regularly.
Right.
We definitely have our fair share of extroverts at Zapier.
You do, right?
Oh yeah, we definitely do. And even one of our extroverts wrote a post for our blog that was like how to be an extrovert working remotely. And so they have their own tips and tricks for working through life. I think that's whether it's introvert, extrovert, or any other dimension, all of us kind of have our own work styles, and we all have to find ways to work better together. And so I think it's useful for folks to tackle those things head on.
Wonderful. I have one final question. What are you grateful for today or this week or this month?
I just spent last week at an offsite with the executive team at Zapier, and we've added 2 new folks to our executive team this year. We've got some folks who've been on the team for quite a while, and every time I get to go heads down with that group of folks, I just come around feeling so grateful that I get to work with these people every single day. They push me, they challenge me, they're smarter than me in a lot of ways. And so I'm just a fan of getting to work with the executive team and of course the greater Zapier team as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sarah. It was a blast.
Thanks, Wade.
Doesn't that sound like a great company to work for? Now, if you're not using Zapier in your business yet, definitely check them out at zapier.com. And you'll find this episode's show notes with all the links at sarahsanacroce.com/episode 71. And as always, if you're listening to the show on a mobile device, you can click on the description and you'll actually find all the clickable links there. I also like to invite you again to leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever else you're listening to this episode. It really means a lot to me, and it helps other introverts find this show more easily. This is Sarah Senecroce signing off from the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast. Remember, you need to use your unique introverted superpowers in order to make a difference. See you soon.